Hi, welcome to the review of A Course of Love. We're starting with the second treatise, and this is chapter 1, and the title of it is Treasure. So beginning with this concept of treasure, we think of treasure as, first, something to be found or discovered, and second, something to be cherished and valued. To the ego, material things can be treasured, but we've now moved beyond the material to seeing internal treasures as valuable. So in the past, when we would think of treasure, we would think of, like the picture gold or jewels, something that you'd find and keep, and it would bring great value to you. And that same concept is here. We find it, except we find it within. We discover our treasure within, and we cherish and value it. We recognize its value. So staying with that concept of treasure. And as we look at this little diagram here of what he's given us, we think of it as, let's say we think of our inner treasure as being a talent. Maybe in the book, I think he talked about the ability to paint. So that's the treasure I have, the ability to paint. And actually, I think it's like to see beauty. And then that yields to the ability. So that means I can take a brush and paint and put it on canvas and express this beauty, which then yields to it becoming a part of my identity. I'm a painter. So we're going to do the same thing with the treasure that we develop internally. Like, okay, there's something within me that has always been there, this ability, this understanding. And it's going to yield itself to an ability to express, which then becomes part of my identity. So we're going to follow the same process with these internal treasures. And in particular, the internal treasure that this treatise is about, and that is unity. So verse 1 tells us this is what we're going to explore in this treatise. A treasure you do not as yet recognize is going to be recognized. You may have turned away from your internal treasures, fearing that any ambition would feed the ego. You may still feel your own desires, thinking all desire comes from the ego. It may have come as a big relief to know that you're perfect as you are, and you may want to rest there in that peace and not strive for anything beyond peace and rest. So in the previous treatise, we ended talking about peace. Now he's pointing out to us that, you may have reached a place of peace, and you may actually be turning away from some of your own internal treasures because you think the ego is going to use them. I've noticed this in myself. There might feel like there's a lack of ambition to do anything in the world because it doesn't mean anything, because you don't have to enhance your self-identity anymore by accomplishing anything or achieving anything. And as a result, you just sort of feel like, okay, I can rest here. I'm okay as I am. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. So this is the kind of phenomenon that he's talking about. In verse 5, he says, this resting place is indeed hallowed ground and an earned respite, a demarcation between the old way and the new way of living. But it is not the end that is sought. No matter how peaceful this place of rest may at first seem, it will soon become stagnant and unsatisfying. As you look at that photo, that painting of the woman in the fields who's been working so hard, and she finally has a moment to take a rest, and it feels so good to rest her body and find peace. But you can imagine that a couple hours later, she's over it, right? that, yeah, it's great to rest when you've earned it and you need it, but you can't rest forever, because it'll become unsatisfying to you. So this is what he's pointing out now. The place of peace isn't a place to stop any more than death is. Life is creation. It's vibrant, alive, and never static. So great that you've had a rest. Great that you've come to peace. And you're alive. Let's see what that means. Verse 6, rest when truly learned is a state of being in which struggle has ceased and peace has triumphed over chaos. Love has triumphed over fear. I mean, what a beautiful thing. And hopefully we've all experienced that. Not so much struggle. Peace is there. Love is the strongest force operating within us. You may see some semblance of fear that'll pop up here and there, and you recognize it and deal with it. You may see peace versus struggle as your only choice, but there is another way. So it's great we've come to the point where we recognize that peace is a choice and that struggle doesn't get us anywhere, but we're asked to move beyond that. Verse 8, the treasure that lies within that you do not fully recognize is that of unity. Let that sink in for a minute. This is your treasure. It's not just a treasure for everyone. It's a treasure for you in your expression and your experience. This isn't a place, but a state of being. And it is a great treasure, this state of being that is available to you. So remember, the first part of a treasure is that it needs to be discovered. So this concept of unity needs to be discovered by you before you can cherish it. Unity in verse 10 is not a place or a thing, but a realm of one heart and mind. The realm of the formless and timeless, but also the realm of connectedness, of what binds all that lives in creation with the Creator. That's the place we're talking about. In unity, we create beyond form. Verse 12, thoughts joined in unity can be likened to thinking without thought. They can be likened to imagination. They can be likened to love. Those are all pointers. Because, of course, if unity is beyond the mind, we're going to have to point at it. It's not something that can actually be described adequately in words, because it's not words. It's a state of being. In verse 13, thoughts joined in unity create without goals or planning, without effort or struggle. And this treasure already is, and it is already valuable and available. So just take that in, verse 13, without goals or planning. When you're in unity, your thoughts, you don't need goals, you don't need plans, you don't need to effort, you don't need to make it happen. Because when your thoughts are joined in this place, this state of being, creation just happens because you're resting in that place of unity. And we're reminded at the end, this treasure already exists, it's already valuable, and it is available within you. You are completely capable of achieving that state. So that is the end of this first chapter. It's going to be followed up in the next couple of chapters. But before we go, I'd like to give my verbal thanks to Jaya Devi Dasi, who is a Course of Love student who created this beautiful image that I've used on this slide and has given me permission to use her paintings in my reviews, for which I'm deeply grateful. I think that this image is a is a perfect representation of thoughts joined in unity and the oneness of that. So thank you, Jaya. See you in the next chapter.